What's going on YouTube? Evan here with Cloud9 Aquariums. Today we're going to talk about what to do when your tanks get completely out of balance, when they really aren't on Cloud9. Been a really long week, but we're finally through it and it's time to get back to the fish tanks. But what I noticed when I got home, well, when I woke up today, was this. I mean, this is just a nightmare right now. And so what I want to do today is I want to talk about what happens when your tanks get out of balance. We're going to talk about the factors of what's really going on, what the problems could be, how to solve it, and how to make a plan to take some action on this. So what's going on right now? Well, you can see in my tank we're having a couple issues. Here's my issue. There is algae everywhere. Now, algae growth is normal. Everybody's going to have some. Part of doing tank maintenance is to scrub your algae, do what you need to do to get rid of it. But to a certain extent, with a balanced tank, you should also be able to control your algae growth very well, if not completely eliminate it. But as you can probably see, my baby tiers, which I had just trimmed down, and I'm trying to grow a new carpet, is it's completely plagued with a couple different kinds of algae, but the major thing I'm seeing that I don't like is some blackbeard algae. It can be a real hassle to get rid of, but this is good that I got it and not you, so that way you can see what happens if you let your tank kind of just roam free for a while and kind of ignore them. And it does happen to the best of us, I have tanks that look great, and apparently I also have tanks that look like crap right now. So, better me than you. Now you can see. It helps me help you, so I can problem solve with you. So let's talk about what we need to do first. So we've already established clearly the balance of my tank is out of whack. The first thing I want to do is just test my basic parameters before I do any water changes or anything like that. Just because I want to see if maybe my ammonias are spiking, my nitrates are going, maybe they're going AWOL. And just check my pH, especially if you have more than one tank. This is actually a really good thing to do, is to test both tanks and compare them to each other, especially because most of us do our water changes on the same day for all of our tanks. So that being said, they should both be at the same phase of their balance. Obviously throughout the week you're going to be building up a little bit more ammonia and stuff like that. So if you want to just kind of check them opposed to each other, obviously if you're using CO2 in one tank and not in the other, then there might be a little bit of difference, especially in pH. But for the basic things, you can kind of test them against each other. If not, you can also test it against your tap water, just because when you're doing water changes, that's what's going to go in it, so you want to make sure they're not too far off. Are you being consistent? This is one thing I already know that I haven't been lately. I've been doing a couple jobs on the side too, so I really have been just working 18-hour days and not really taking care of my fish tanks. So I wasn't being very consistent. Sure, I would feed them. I was kind of doing one of those quick feedings, so sometimes you overfeed just because you want to get it over with quick, and you figure out, just dump some in and walk away and call it a day. Well, then you're not really paying attention to how your fish are eating, and maybe there's a lot getting on the ground, and even your cleanup crew can't take care of it. Have I been consistent with water changes? I was a little late last week. I usually go about a week. I took about a week and a half last time. It's been another week and a half since the last. So it's about time. And when you start building up, being late on things like that and just not being consistent, then sometimes you get in a world of hurt. I haven't been consistent with my fertilizing. Usually I dose excel. I try to do, especially when I do a pruning, I try to do it every day. If not, at least every other day. It tends to keep my algae down, which clearly is not happening. Other things too, of course, my plants and stuff. If they're not with my lighting, I have all my lighting on timers, but you have to understand that my duration and my intensity has been balanced perfectly, assuming that I'm going to be consistent with the fertilizers that I'm putting in, so that my lights will be able to absorb all that nutrients that I'm putting in my tank because of the lighting. So if I'm putting too much light on and there's actually not enough nutrients, believe it or not, that actually could cause algae. If there's not enough CO2, not enough fertilizing nutrients, you got your macros and your micros. So, and I haven't been doing any of that recently because, again, I've just been kind of just slacking off. So, and my other tanks, you know, actually took it well because for some reason they're more balanced. But this one's also a dirted tank, so it has one of those things where sometimes the balance can get off, especially with a huge algae bloom like this, just due to the excess nutrients that dirting can cause when you're not doing big water changes frequently. So let's talk about some factors. I've already gone through some of them. Water changes. Obviously, you want to stay up on your water changes. Let's think about your light intensity. You know, maybe your tank is out of balance because you have too much light intensity. Maybe you don't have enough. So that's one of those things where you can kind of tell on your light intensity based on the speed your algae is growing and the speed that your fish, yeah, because your fish are really growing because of your light. But the speed that your plants are growing. If your plants are growing at kind of just like a really, I mean, obviously some plants grow faster than others too, so you can't say, well, my Anubias over here is growing really slow, so I must need to up my light intensity. Well, you know, that doesn't mean anything because Anubias is a slow growing plant. But it's one thing you can kind of, you know, I always like, when I'm starting a new tank, I actually like to keep a little log of it, just a little log book, just to kind of help me balance the tank out first. So I, you know, log what my light, you know, my actual light intensity is on the tank, what kind of growth I'm getting with the duration. So I'll, you know, go one week or 2 weeks with this light intensity and this duration, and then another week or, you know, another set of weeks with this, and just to see what the difference is and which one actually played out better, as opposed, you know, with my plant growth as opposed to algae growth. Maybe you're putting in too many fertilizers, or maybe you're not putting in enough. Now, some people they have this thing about them where they feel like putting in fertilizers is going to make algae grow. Okay, that actually, believe it or not, sometimes if you don't fertilize, you actually might get algae growth because your plants aren't getting, because even if, you have to understand, we all need a balanced diet, okay? If we have, you know, all protein and no carbohydrates, no nothing else, you know, we're not going to grow and function properly because we need all these other nutrients. It's the same thing with plants. If they're just getting CO2 but they're not getting anything else, that's not going to do anything for them. It's the same thing where if they're not getting any CO2, or even if they're getting some fertilizers, because you have to understand there's a lot of fertilizers out there on the market, because you have your macro nutrients that they need, and then there's also micronutrients that they need. So if you're doing something like you have an Excel, which helps with the CO2, you have like just a generic comp, which will kind of give you all a good mix of macro and micro, and then just doing water changes honestly will give you, generally it gives you any other kind of nutrients that your plants could need. But again, if you're giving them too much of one and not enough of the other, then sometimes that can also become a problem because they're not able to they don't have the balance that they need. Then they won't even be able to grow at all, so they won't even pull those other nutrients out, even though there's an excess of those. And guess what? Your algae they'll love it. Another factor that I am not dealing with right now, but I'm at the kind of the threshold of the limit, is how many fish do you have in your tank? You know, if you have too many fish, maybe they're excreting too much ammonia, or maybe because there's so many fish, you think you can just overfeed because you think that there's so many fish, you need to put so much more food in, but they're actually not consuming at all. So there's something with that too, where that could become a problem. You just really need to kind of pay attention to what you have. So those are some kind of factors. Go through those, keep a log book of your tank, and kind of figure out what's going on. Obviously, every single tank's different. And then the biggest thing is make a plan. I know I say this a lot, but before you do anything, make a plan. Figure out what you're going to do, how you're going to do it before you do it. Because if you're in the middle of doing something, and then, you know, you realize you skipped a step, it just becomes kind of a hassle. So I know I'm already kind of making a plan in my head right now of what I'm going to do today to tackle this. So we'll go through this. What I'm going to do today, I am going to turn off one of my lights, because I'm running a three light system on top, as you can see. So I'm going to turn off my lights. That's going to lower my intensity. I'm going to cut back on my duration to, I believe it's running at about 8 hours right now, so I'm probably going to cut it back to at least 6. Just to kind of get a grasp on things. The main reason I'm going to do that is just because I want to slow the algae growth. So even if I'm not, while I'm trying to figure out what my balance issue is, I'd like to at least slow the algae growth before it becomes so much of a hassle and a problem that I might have, just rip out the entire tank and start over, which can actually happen, believe it or not. Another thing I'm going to do, obviously, I'm going to scrape the entire tank. I am going to actually pull out my log here and hit it with a toothbrush, obviously an unused toothbrush. I have one specifically for my fish tank. And I'm going to scrape off any algae that I can get off. Obviously, I'll go in there with polyfill, clean all the walls, even the back wall. I'll clean all my filter heads. I will open up my actual cartridge, my filter, which I usually, I have canister filters. Obviously, this is running a Fluval 304, so I really don't open those up very often. But I'm going to open that up. I'm going to change the polyfill in that, or I'm going to see at least what's going on in there, because you never know. Sometimes this can happen because you haven't cleaned it very well, and there's just a buildup in there, and there's just not enough flow going through, and there could be just a buildup of gunk in there. I just need to clean out, so maybe I'll rinse out the larger sediment filter pads. I'm also going to clean, the problem with the baby tears is you really can't get it off very well with anything, but I'll go in with my hand and just kind of try to, I don't even know how to describe it. You kind of go in with your hand and just kind of swish the water around and try to get off as much of this as possible, because usually that kind of algae doesn't actually hold onto the plant, it's growing in between it, and so I can usually just kind of get it out with my hand. But then I'll also take some polyfill and go to my Madagascar lace and gently go down every single leaf, and that'll help take off a lot of that algae. Again, because I'm not sure if you know very much about Madagascar lace, but when those actual holes in the leaves, and when those get clogged with algae or sediments, that can actually really damage the plant and really inhibit its growth. So I really want to make sure that that I clean that plant off well, because my Madagascar lace is probably one of my favorite plants, and if I lose that, that would just be that would be awful. So we're gonna take care of that. I'm gonna do a huge water change today. I'll probably do 75%. When I have it pulled down, I'm going to hit everything. Obviously, I will have already done all of my my algae scrubbing and such. Well, once the water's pulled down, I'm going to hit it with a full dose of Excel. Now, because it's a 30-gallon tank, once I'm done pulling the water out, I'm going to put 3 capfuls of Excel in, and I'm going to hit it concentrated. So I'm going to actually, I'll do 3 capfuls of it, but I'm going to put it in an eyedropper, and I'm going to hit it where I can really see on some plants. My dwarf sage back there is really going to be hard to get it off of that, so I'm going to hit that hard with just a medicine dropper or a little eyedropper or whatever, and just kind of squeeze it right onto the areas that are really problematic, and that'll instantly just demolish the stuff. So that'll be good. And then I'll let it sit down there for a while. I'll do my water changes on my other tanks, and let the whole tank kind of just sit in a concentration. You don't want to leave it there for too long, obviously, because it's really concentrated in a small amount of water, and I don't want to put my fish through anything that might stress them out. So once that's sitting there for a couple minutes, when I'm done with my other tanks, when I'm doing my refill cycle, I'll fill my tank and go about my merry day. So that's pretty much how I'm going to do it. I've got my plan in place, so there's going to be no surprises. I'm not going to get, through my water change and then realize, oh, I should have hit it with a dose of Excel, or, I did all this stuff, but then I didn't change my lights, or I didn't do this, I didn't do that. So I really want to figure out what's going on. If that doesn't work, then at least I'll be closer to getting it done, because I'll have some of the algae taken out. If I see that it's still coming back, then I will change my light intensity some more. I will change my fertilizing schedule some more. But again, you don't want to do everything at once. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that I'm consistent again. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing my water changes very consistently. I'm going to dose Excel every single day this week. Do comp twice a week. I always do comp. I usually do it in the middle of my cycle, What I mean by that is I do my water change because I feel like when I do my water change, I'm putting in my nutrients. So I don't really need to put my comp in right then. But then halfway through, because I usually do a water change every weekend. So say in the middle of the week, like Wednesday, then I'd add my comp just so that way any kind of nutrients that have been already absorbed by the plants can then kind of be regained throughout the rest of the week. But this time I'm actually going to do a comp. When I do my water change, I'm going to do comp on a Wednesday also. So that'll take care of this. And then I'm not really worried about my fish. My duration, like I said, I'm going to run it down to 3 or 6 hours. And then I'm gonna turn it down to 2 lights this week just to kind of lower my intensity and see how that goes. But again, once I'm back on a consistent schedule, I will bump my lights back up to what I found was working for me for a balance. I will, turn all 3 lights on, go back to the same duration. And if that wasn't, because I'm pretty sure after going through my checklist, I haven't done my parameters yet, so obviously I'll check my parameters before I do any water changes or anything like that. But I'm pretty positive just by looking at the tank and looking at my terrible schedule this week that my problem right now is just not being consistent. So, like I've always said, make a plan with everything you do and just be consistent. I'm very consistent with my other tanks, and they don't have any problems. This tank, for some reason, is just giving me kind of a hassle lately, and this week it really bit me in the butt. So we're going to fix it. It's going to look beautiful again. Stay tuned for more. Obviously, I'll show you when I get it fixed. And it's not an if I get it fixed, it's a when, okay? So, hope you guys are having a great week. Sorry I've been so busy lately, but I have tried to get back to most of your comments and messages. I've really been getting a lot of good video, not only video response, but video ideas too. I've gotten a lot of messages, so even if you guys don't see people responding in comments, you'd be surprised how many people send me personal messages. I really do love getting back to you guys. Be patient with me. It doesn't always happen the same day. Sometimes it takes a week for me to get back to you when I'm doing stuff like this week where I just, I would work, eat, sleep, go to bed. Well, sleeping and go to bed is the same thing, but sometimes you go to bed and you don't go to sleep. You know what I mean. It's been a long week, guys, so be patient with me. But as always, you can leave comments, questions. I will get back to you. And the same thing, if you see somebody asking a question and I haven't answered it yet in the comments and you know the answer, by all means, let them know. This is yes, it's YouTube, but it's also a community. You can respond to it too. So take care of your fellow hobbyists. Help each other out. If you see stuff that you can help me out with too, I'm not the all-knowing guru. Okay, you can help me out too. It's a community. We're a hobby community, and we're all trying to have a good time here. So help each other out. Take it easy this week. Lay low. Keep your tanks balanced, please. Oh, don't do this. This isn't fun. You don't want to have to deal with this. I don't want to have to deal with this. You don't want to have to deal with this. But as always, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It'll help you see all my videos and kind of check out what I got going on. If you haven't yet, I have a bunch of playlists kind of going through some various topics that I feel are important. But as always, you can send me some more video ideas. I don't even know, like 50 ideas right now that you guys have sent me, not even including my own. So I really do appreciate the responses. And so that's going to do it. Hope this helps you out. Hope this helps you keep your fish tank on cloud 9. And take it easy this week, guys.